Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, November 24th, 2019, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Senate elections yet again. So I know I just recently made a video about this, and you're probably tired of seeing things about the Senate when the presidential election definitely, I guess, comes first, especially on my channel. Tomorrow I will be going through the, shift in ratings by people like Inside Elections and Cook Political Report, Sabato Crystal Ball, pretty much how they've shifted their predictions for the 2020 election. So we're pretty much a year out, so I want to cover that tomorrow. But today I'll just be covering the 2020 Senate elections based off of only polling data. So I just recently made a prediction video. I saw a couple of comments discussing how not all of my predictions were based purely off data, and that makes sense. I went through all of the states that currently have polling, considering that a number of them currently don't because they are safe states, so there's no real reason to waste money there. But some states do have polling data, and it does shift a little bit more in favor of the Democrats than my personal prediction did, and that really makes sense. Some of these polls are really either outdated or generic in terms of the question that they ask. It's usually generic Democrat versus generic Republican. We're definitely going to see some states that you might not expect to be swinging for either political party going that way. We may see some states that are closer than we might expect, just because a lot of these polls are very early. The only polls that I would actually trust would be, presidential election polls, because everyone knows who the candidates are. In terms of some of these states where these new Democrats start running, again, there are Democrats like in states like Colorado. John Hickenlooper, he's definitely well known statewide, former governor. That makes sense that he would be on the ballot and everyone would know who he is. Cory Gardner, of course, the incumbent Republican. But let's take example maybe Iowa, where the Democratic candidates aren't too well known, and pretty much the only people that are known are the Republican incumbent senators. So it really all depends, but I'll definitely update this video as we get through the election season. So this map is still an uphill battle for the Democratic Party. They are not exactly at their best point. The Republican Party definitely has a lot more seats up than they did in 2018. However, a lot of these states are already considered safe for the GOP. States like Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma. Surprisingly, Texas had no polling data. I'm actually going to consider this one safe for right now. Arkansas, Louisiana, I did characterize Texas as likely in my other prediction, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep it there. That way, everything stays the same. So pretty much let's just go through and characterize all the states. Mississippi, I do not have any. There's no data from Alabama. Surprisingly, that one really took me off guard, considering that Doug Jones is likely to face up against Jeff Sessions yet again. I really want to see how this map actually turns out, but as of right now, I'm going to go ahead and keep this one in the lean Republican column just for right now, and that really makes sense mainly because if you take a look at Jeff Sessions as another candidate to run again, I do think it's going to be a lot closer than you might expect. Even though Jeff Sessions was leaving as a popular candidate, he no longer has the president's support. And in a state like Alabama, that really can make all the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and characterize Alabama as a lean Republican state for right now. Moving over, I'm not going to characterize Georgia because we do have some data there, but we don't have any data in the special election. And based off of reports and political organizations and how they rate that state, I would consider the state of Georgia special election. I'm going to consider that one likely. South Carolina, I discussed this one before. This one does have polling data, so we'll skip over that. Texas, I don't know, I said Texas. Tennessee is safe. We'll come back to West Virginia. Illinois does not have any. Okay, so pretty much Alaska, all of these states, all the states that I filled in so far have no polling data and are already characterized as this for right now. And that puts the Republicans at 44, the Democrats at 35. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the safe Democratic states. Again, some of these states may have polling data, so I'm not going to characterize them right away, but Illinois, Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island. I'm surprised a lot of these northern states don't have any polling data. Massachusetts does have polling data, so we will come back to that one. Maine does as well. So does New Hampshire. Michigan as well. Minnesota does not. That one I would consider. Actually, I'm going to see that one is likely for right now, and then we'll discuss it a little bit later. Going over to Iowa. Iowa, I believe, does have polling data. Montana does not, which is also pretty surprising, considering that Steve Bullock may end up being a candidate here. But at the same time, it really wouldn't make sense for him to jump in the race if he doesn't want to contradict himself. But if we look at candidates like Beto O'Rourke, they definitely would have a bigger shot if they actually did enter into the race, even though they made promises early on because of their presidential election campaigns. That really doesn't mean much after you've dropped out. But Steve Bullock, surprisingly, has not dropped out yet. It really all depends on how the race is going to continue for him, but he hasn't been in any of the debates so far, so it's going to be really, really hard for him to go ahead and just stay in the race, especially with no recognition nationwide. So pretty much Montana. I remember leaving it as likely before. That was mainly just because Steve Bullock does have the possibility of entering the race, but if he doesn't enter in, I'm going to keep that one as safe leading into the election season. But for right now, actually, I'm, I guess, taking a look at it now. So we have Kansas is likely and Mississippi is likely, but there's no polling data out of those states yet, which is also something that I really want to see so I can compare it to my pretty much last prediction for 2019 for the Senate elections. I may do one in December, but that really all depends. New Mexico also does not have any data. Oregon, I understand Oregon, but New Mexico, I thought that they might throw in some data there, but that one's still safe for the Democrats, and so is Oregon. But taking a look at the remaining states up, pretty much I have data in all of these states: Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, Kentucky, Wyoming, West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia's at large, I guess, Class 2 election, if I'm not mistaken, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. So let's go ahead and take a look at the composition right now. I think making it possibly a pie chart could go ahead and make it a little bit easier to understand on the side, just because that's how you can see the, I guess, 50 over 50 for the majority. But that puts Republicans at 45, the Democrats at 42. Let's go ahead and characterize some of these other states through the polling data. So Michigan, this one was actually area of contention on my last video. Michigan is considered likely with a Democrat plus 8.3 margin in the state itself. That puts Gary Peters at a likely chance of winning re-election based off data alone. Massachusetts, I only wanted to mention because Joe Kennedy III is running for Senate in the state of Massachusetts. He is not the incumbent. He is currently leading the incumbent in statewide primary data, which should be pretty interesting. But it ends up being a Democrat plus 8 margin in the state, which again, I don't think is going to hold up and come to fruition, just because Massachusetts is such a Democratic state. I really don't see it narrowing down below 10-20% for that state itself. Going over to Colorado, Democrats lead there by 13, just narrowly in the likely column, breaking into the safe. Right now puts John Hickenlooper at a likely chance of winning in the Senate election there. Going over to Arizona, the Democrats lead by 2%, puts Mark Kelly ahead of Martha McSally. Martha McSally would lose an election yet again, but here's a little bit good. These are good numbers for the Republican Party. Going over to the state of Maine, the Republicans lead there by 14%, again, narrowly in the likely column. But again, that does not spell out good news for a lot of the Democrats there. But again, these Democrats definitely can get more well-known as we progress through the election season. This poll was taken in the form of a ranked choice voting, by the way. Going over to North Carolina, the Democrats lead there by 7%, which is also enough to characterize it in the likely area. So Democrat plus 7 margin. We're going to skip over Georgia. We're going to go ahead and hit Iowa, which shows Joni Ernst ahead by 7%. And that really makes sense. A lot of you guys commented in the video about how the Democrats might win there because she's unpopular. But at the same time, Iowa isn't exactly a Democratic state. Compared to what the House elections show, disregarding that, Iowa typically is not too Democratic. Obama definitely was a candidate that really brought out voters there, but Trump definitely flipped it solidly away from the Democrats back in 2016. And the 2018 House elections definitely had a lot of circumstances that really helped Democrats in Iowa. But the Senate election, I could see Joni Ernst narrowly taking it away. Maybe not by 7%, but definitely winning there. Going over to Kentucky, this is actually very close. Kentucky goes to Mitch McConnell by a mere 1% against Amy McGrath. I'm presuming her to be the nominee because she's leading in preliminary Democratic primary data, but things can change. Going over to New Hampshire, the Democrats lead by 9%. Again, a likely state by that characterization. And South Carolina is the Republican win with Lindsey Graham by 23%. 3%. So that's not even close to being likely or lean. I characterized it as likely in my video. Again, I do think the Democrats might do a little bit better than that, but that margin sounds about right. It definitely could narrow down as the Democrat gets more name recognition, but as of right now, that really makes sense because Lindsey Graham seems to be the only known entity from the state of South Carolina on the national level besides Nikki Haley. And Virginia goes to the Democrats by 17%. That's enough to put it into the safe column. That puts the Democrats at 49, the Republicans at 49. And the final state, one of the final states, actually I have one more state after this, but West Virginia goes to the GOP by 13%. And that puts the Republicans at 50, the Democrats at 49. And the reason why I wanted to say Georgia is because this one I characterized as likely, but the only data we have right now is generic Republican versus generic Democrat, in which the generic Democrat wins by 2%. And right now, this race in Georgia is characterized likely or safe by almost all of the political analysts and the companies themselves. So that finishes this video at 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.